In the last 15 years, Hollywood stopped selling new ideas. Out of the 50 highest grossing movies since 2010, 48 of them are based on famous brands like Marvel. The only two that weren't were Frozen and Zootropolis. Instead of solving the problem, America's film industry has a different strategy: remake everything. The most recent perpetrator is Netflix's live-action remake of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's how he's gonna be the Avatar.
There are kids shows that literally help shape who we are, and for millions of people, the original Avatar cartoon is one of them. Avatar's world is divided into 4 nations based on the elements: fire, water, earth, and air. Certain people can control an element with their mind, and they're called benders. The original Avatar is one of those rare shows that finds the perfect balance between light and dark. Nothing captures that balance better than Aang, the main character. Aang is like your friend's annoying little brother who you can't help but love deep down. He's full of life and feels invincible, which a lot of us could relate to as kids. But Aang's backstory has darkness and flaws mixed into it. We quickly learn that Aang is the last airbender because he abandoned the Air Nation when he was supposed to protect them. As a result, they were all wiped out by the Fire Nation. Sure, he was just a kid, but it's a complicated introduction to the hero in a kids show, which is why it connected so deeply. Even as kids, we know that there's good and bad in us. So seeing a hero run away because he's scared makes you feel closer to him.
Aang, this is all my fault.
No, Katara, it isn't.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Aang is one of the many details that make Avatar a classic. And as an animated classic, it got the usual Hollywood treatment: live-action remakes. If you don't know, a live-action remake is when an animated movie is recreated with real people and places. Beyond Hollywood's habit of recycling ideas, there's one driving force behind these remakes, and that's Disney. The Mickey Mouse outfit has made over $9.5 billion on live-action remakes in the box office alone. That kind of success is astounding, even for Disney, and it explains why the other entertainment companies followed their lead. Netflix is one of those companies, but they added a twist by focusing specifically on anime. They've put out 16 live-action remakes of anime shows, including One Piece, Death Note, and Full Metal Alchemist. Even though Avatar isn't technically an anime, its style is really similar, so Netflix decided to scoop it up. And like most of Netflix's anime remakes, Avatar doesn't live up to the original. A lot of the complexity and iconic world building is missing, and the characters feel flatter than the original series. I'll get to those problems in a second, but there's an even bigger issue. What's the point of a live-action remake?
Bending is about energy and balance.
If you like this kind of video, make sure to subscribe. I'll be posting every week, and it really helps me out. Thanks. The thinking behind live-action remakes doesn't click with me. When you make an animated story live-action, you end up using tons of CGI to fill in the live elements, which is just another version of animation. So really, you're just reanimating the original story in a hyper-realistic style alongside live pieces. But why would more realistic animation be better? The magic of animated stories is that you're not just transported to an alternate reality, but a separate reality entirely. You feel like you're in another dimension, which can be an even deeper escape than we get from live-action stories. Taking all that imagination and grounding it with real people and hyper-realistic animation doesn't elevate the stories. It makes them weaker. How is real Momo better than animated Momo?
Thanks, Momo. I owe you a bushel of apples.
It's tempting to say, well, these remakes make a lot of money, so clearly they have value. Who cares? But isn't it a little sad that no new ideas become major successes in film anymore? Like I said earlier, almost every big hit in American film since 2000 has been based on famous IP. It seems like the only way to compete with old ideas is to make movies for kids, which is fine, but Frozen just doesn't hit like it would if I was 7. TV and streaming is in a much better spot, but Netflix's attempt to remake famous anime feels like the same lack of originality leaking into streaming. It makes money, but that's kind of all it does, which makes it seem like a classic Hollywood cash grab.
Money, gonna make some money.
Live action isn't the only thing that makes Netflix's version of Avatar weaker than the original. Like Aang, most of the characters in the original series were dynamic and complicated. Despite the short 61-episode run, it mastered the art of building character quickly. Everybody had unique strengths and weaknesses, and they grew throughout the story. These things sound simple, but Netflix's version of Avatar loses focus on character. The dialogue feels flat, and the younger actors are constantly rushing through their lines, like they're just trying to get them out correctly. More importantly though, the characters are just less fun to watch. The original trio of Aang, Sokka, and Katara were goofy and impulsive, like actual kids. In the live-action version, they're written like 25-year-olds who were jaded by life.
I wasn't allowed to do any fight training until I had done 100 vertical strokes and 100 horizontal.
There can be another disadvantage to live-action remakes, which is the need for on-screen actors. For a kids show, this is a major obstacle because most kids are bad actors. Unfortunately, Netflix's Avatar does not overcome this obstacle. Aang is played by Gordon Cormier, who's 14, and the combination of his performance and the writing just doesn't feel right for Aang. I can't blame Gordon, obviously, but hence the problem with ditching animation. Zuko, who is Aang's archenemy and a firebender, feels even flatter than Aang in the new version. The performance feels like a performance, and the dialogue sounds like written lines. The acting just isn't immersive. In the original series, characters like Iroh, who is Zuko's uncle, were iconic partially because of the acting from veterans like Mako Iwamatsu.
You should take your teacher's advice and relax a little.
Instead of focusing on character, Netflix's Avatar took the classic Hollywood angle and boosted the action. It feels like the action sequences are so much more drawn out in the live-action version. Although the CGI is really good, it still leaves less time for all the things that made the original iconic. All of the dialogue has to be used to explain backstory, which means it can't be used for anything interesting. The world is still unique, but there's no time to focus on the little details that really bring it to life. There are countless ramifications to packing the show with so much action, and you can feel them. In fairness to the Netflix version, it's a lot better than M. Night Shyamalan's adaptation from 2010. Shyamalan tried to make a live-action version of Avatar as well, but it was one of the most hated big-budget movies that's ever been released. As of now, it has a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 4 out of 10 on IMDb. The 2024 version isn't nearly as brutal. It's flawed, and I'm not sure it should exist, but it still gets certain aspects right. The source material for Avatar is great, and Netflix's version keeps enough of the major elements that the story is still imaginative. On top of that, this is some of the best CGI I've ever seen on TV or streaming. It's usually bland when animated worlds are recreated in the real world, but the new Avatar has a consistent visual style that's mystical and yet still blends well with real-life elements. Also, some of the performances aren't too bad, although I wouldn't say they're gonna go down as anything memorable.
It's me, Aang.
We're in an incredible spot with streaming right now. So much genuinely creative content has been made recently, from Severance, to The Curse, to Succession, to White Lotus. All of the most original ideas are being made for streaming, which is why I'm not a fan of Netflix's remake model. Hollywood is cursed by the need for famous IP to sell tickets, and I hope streaming doesn't fall into the same trap just because it's safer. I'm not too hopeful though, because with Avatar and One Piece, it looks like Netflix is figuring out how to win fans over with their anime remakes. Most importantly, a whole lot of people are watching, so we should probably get used to these tactics from streamers. They're not going anywhere soon. Thanks so much for watching, and if you liked the video, make sure to subscribe. It really does help me out, so thanks again if you do. Also, if you checked out my True Detective video, I just wanted to say thanks for the support. It's been really awesome. Next video will be out in a week. I'll see you soon.